Breaking out of Allen Park right now, the pen is uncapped, the call light is blinking, and Detroit just put its thumb on the scale of this season. The kind of last-minute move that flips close games in December from hold your breath to kneel downs with a grin. Welcome back to Lions News Fan Report. I'm going to take you inside the boardroom logic and onto the chalkboard. Why the front office zeroed in on one specific edge profile, how the cap math keeps every long-term door open, what the medical window really means, and exactly how this piece slides beside Aiden Hutchinson to turn pressure into outcomes. Stick with me because I'm not only laying out the timeline and the price, I'm also showing you the third down package I'd deploy on the very first Sunday after the paperwork clears, plus the snap share I expect once the ramp-up is over. If you live this team the way I do, tap in and keep the alerts on. This is one of those nights when the phones don't sleep and the GM's coffee goes cold because the tape is doing the talking. Here is the heartbeat of the story. Detroit spent months rebalancing its edge room after the spring's tough calls, betting on internal development and selective midseason help rather than overpaying in July for a name that wouldn't move the needle in January. The early returns justified the patience. Hutchinson is back mauling with violent hands and a runway first step, which means protections have tilted toward him like a seesaw pinned to one side. That tilt is the opportunity. When an offense oversets to Aiden and the quarterback climbs, you need a closer on the opposite edge who doesn't just arrive, he arrives late with intent, finishing plays the way a closer in baseball lives for the ninth inning. We saw flashes opposite Hutch, and I respect the grind that kept this defense functional while bodies shuffled in and out, but anyone with eyes knows the margin for error shrinks in cold weather and playoff scripts. That is where the front office got surgical. Don't chase a star. Buy a finisher. The board they built prizes length, persistence, and comfort in twist games. Guys who can run a TE loop with a 3-tech, spill a pocket from depth, and still set the edge when offenses try to turn panic into draw plays. The budget guardrails were clear from the start. You take on a prorated base, not a future anchor. You pay with late-round capital, not blue-chip ammo. And you protect yourself with conditions tied to snaps and January wins. That approach kept every window open and forced the conversation back to pure football. Who can give Detroit 20-25 snaps in a rotational role now and 35+ once the legs are under him, without asking Aaron Glenn to tear pages out of a playbook that's working? And that brings us to the name I've been hearing around the league office and on GM phones for days, the name that matches Detroit's checklist line for line: Arden Key. If you've watched him at his best, you know the silhouette. Long, loose upper body, enough bend to squeeze tackle depth, and a motor that doesn't die when first contact arrives. He's a detailed player in games up front. Attack the guard's outside shoulder on loops, flatten late, and arrive right as the quarterback believes the pocket is safe. Now, the context matters. His surface numbers this season won't make a headline. Modest sack total, a handful of pressures, but the snap share and the environment kneecap the counting stats. He's been living on a defense that's chasing the game too often, and he missed time with a quad, which is exactly why a smart buyer keeps the price in the late-round neighborhood and bakes in protections. That's Detroit's lane. Calculated risk, capped downside. Financially, this is painless for a contender. You're taking on the remainder of a team-friendly base number, roughly the cost of a veteran depth piece for the back half of the season. It's the definition of flexible. If the marriage sparks, you talk in March. If not, you shake hands and pocket the comp pick math. As for draft capital, this is day 3 country. The league isn't handing out double-digit sack guys at the deadline for nickels, but a rotational closer on an expiring deal with a medical box to check, that's where you leverage the extra late pick and your confidence in your training staff. If I'm holding the phone, my ceiling is a conditional 6th that can bump to a 5th on snap thresholds or a playoff win. That keeps your future intact and acknowledges that you're buying January snaps, not a billboard name. The medical piece is the truth serum. We're talking about a quad that stole practice time and cost games, which is why nobody smart screams done deal until the trainers say the burst and the strike are present. But this is also where timing favors Detroit. You've got a 2-week window to gauge ramp-up, review workload trends, and map a snap plan that keeps the player productive without turning the leg into a storyline. If the leg answers, green light. If not, you pivot without burning premium ammo. And now the football part, the why on grass. Early downs, I keep Hutchinson wide to stress the outside hip and force the tackle to overset. I shade Alim McNeil to the strong A-gap so climb lanes die early, and I use Key as the flexible 4th in a mint front look. He can spike to compress the B-gap, sit with patience against boot, or widen and string out zone. On 3rd and 6 or more, I go NASCAR. Reduce Hutch to a 3-tech over the guard, stand Key in a wide 9 to threaten depth, and run TE games that crack the pocket like brittle glass. If the slide goes to Hutch, Key's path is clean. If Key lands a couple and the slide flips, Hutch has a guard one-on-one, and that's theft. The 2-minute drill is where Key's persistence pays retail. Those late squeezes on the arc don't always show up in the box, but they turn on-time throws into off-platform flutters that feed robber coverage and end games. Role expectations are crystal. You're not buying 60 snaps. You're buying a closer's innings. 25 purposeful reps in week 1 after arrival, 30-35 once the ramp is done, and a third down pitch mix that lets Aaron Glenn call games with both aggression and restraint. With Hutch drawing the tilt and McNeil wrecking the interior on early downs, Key's job is to close the loop, convert stress into sacks or force hot throws that your underneath defenders are already waiting to jump. And don't underrate the culture fit. This locker room is allergic to cruise control. If you've watched this staff coach edges, you know they reward effort like a currency. Key is a pest by design. That's good here. It amplifies what Detroit already does well without asking anyone to abandon identity. So here's the climactic turn you stayed for. The move on the table is Arden Key to Detroit, a deal that threads the cap needle, respects the draft board, and solves the one problem every coordinator feels when the game script puts you up 6 with 2:12 left and a timeout in your pocket. It's not about a headline. It's about the rep in the fourth quarter when a quarterback climbs and your closer materializes like a door slamming shut. That's why I'm in on this, because it's the exact kind of marginal improvement that feels small on a transaction log and massive on a frozen January night. I want to hear you now. What's your price ceiling? Conditional 6 that rises, or would you push to a straight 5th to beat a quiet bidder? Do you hold him to a situational role through the holidays or push the snaps once the leg proves it? And if you had to pick one third down front for the playoffs, is it Hutch at 3 tech with Key wide, or do you keep Hutch on the edge and run Key as the looper to exploit tired guards? Drop your take below because this community has been dead on about trench solutions all year, and I want the smartest voices at the front of this thread. Concise read to land the plane. Key checks the boxes: length, motor, comfort in games, expiring money that won't touch next spring, and a price that lives in late day 3. If the medical clears and the number stays sane, this is the move that takes pressure off Hutchinson, gives Aaron Glenn a nastier third down menu, and protects leads without bending your future. I'm ready to stamp it. Football logic strong, financial logic stronger, timing perfect. If you're with me, hit subscribe, throw a like so the algorithm doesn't bury Honolulu Blue in a sea of noise, and keep your bell on because when the trigger gets pulled, I'll be here first with the deployment plan and snap projection the second the ink dries.